How's it going, guys? Serious here. This is another Path of Exile 1 farming video, but before we get into it, I have here 9 level 20 grace. Let's try to corrupt them to level 21. So we have 1, 2, not so shabby. We made 120 chaos for free. Now let's start. I bring you today 100 maps of harvest farming. This isn't very expensive nor very cheap. It's quite in the middle range of investment. However, you can make this significantly more expensive if you use the Horned Scarab of Awakening. However, I will not be doing that in this video. This will target mid-tier player investment. Let's start over the mechanic. This is the easiest mechanic to liquidate in terms of return. You will only be getting life force and we will be selling them immediately. You do not have a lot of stuff to liquidate. This is very fast. Now let's talk a bit about the maps we're running. We're running T16 Jungle Valleys. This is because we're aiming for the Divine Orb altar and the Quantity altars, so we do not need any boss altars to spawn. This is why we're using Jungle Valleys. Now let's talk about the Scarabs. We are using the Harvest Scarab of Doubling, so we can double the amount of life force we drop. We're using the Influence Scarab of Hordes, so that we increase the amount of influenced packs in our maps. The Harvest Scarab just to spawn the Sacred Grove, because we will not be using any craft on our device, so we can benefit from the increased percentage of quantity. We will also be using the Scarab of Monster Lineage to increase the pack size of our harvest monsters. And finally, we're using the Cartography Scarab of Escalation. This does not affect harvest, however it will affect the maps that we drop, and we are aiming to drop tier 16 dunes that are influenced with memory, because these maps now are kind of expensive. Now let's talk about the Atlas. I am blocking almost all the mechanics except for Harvest, of course, and Ultimatum and Ritual. This is because those Scarabs are expensive. Now we're taking of course all the increased effect of explicit modifiers, because the harvest life force increases very much with quantity. And of course we'll be using singular focus for the dune maps, and we're taking as many Scarab nodes as we can. Of course we're taking this node right here, so our Scarabs drop be more rare. And finally we're taking the trapping carcasses again for chance to drop more strongbox Scarabs. We are using the Eater of World altars. This is because these altars have more chances to spawn quant altars, thus affecting harvest. And of course we're gonna be hunting the Divine Orb altar. Now let's talk about harvest. Of course I'm not taking chance to spawn harvest in our maps because we'll be using a Scarab, but we're taking almost all the other nodes, and we're using of course crop rotation, because in my opinion this is better for harvest farming. So what this keystone does is that it spawns all the crops in your maps to be tier 1, and as you click on one color and kill the monsters, the other colors will upgrade. We are targeting yellow juice of course, so we'll be killing all the other colors before that and leaving them till the end so they can get juiced up. We're taking of course the Quant outer wheel and the Quant inner wheel. And of course we're taking these two nodes right here for a chance for our maps to drop with influence. Now in terms of investment, we're not looking at much. The maps are self-farmed. I found them in the last video. However, if you would to pay for them, this would cost you 3 chaos per map, to a total of 300 chaos for 100 maps. In terms of Scarab, the most expensive Scarabs being the Harvest of Doubling. I bought 100 Scarab for 6 divines. We paid 1 divine for the Scarabs of Hordes, 1 divine for the Scarab of Monsters Lineage, and 1 divine for the Scarabs of Escalation. As for the Harvest Scarab, they cost us only ATC. And we are looking at 11.3 divines of investment. Now of course before we start, I need to say that you need to do all the map at first, because we want to spawn as many altars as possible so we can target quantity of items, and then when we clear the map you want to go into the harvest and do it. Now let's talk about crop rotation for a second here. So you see from this map we only have one yellow plant. We're gonna be leaving that until the end. First of all, we target all the purple ones, and from the looks of this one, the blue one did not wield. This is a very low chance, but this is very nice because we can also upgrade the blue one so we can kill it before we kill the yellow one. Targeting some more purple ones right here, and now we are left with the two blues and the set of blue and yellow. We're gonna kill the blues, of course, at start. Then we're gonna go back to the one that did not wield. Of course, it has upgraded. We're gonna kill it. Of course, not all of the maps are as juiced in crops as this one. This I would consider a pretty lucky one. And here we go, the final result. We have 10 tier 4 monsters. This will yield us a lot of yellow juice. However, just as I said, sometimes you're not that lucky. Your maps will only contain a total of 3 crops, and for this example right here it only has one color, so it's pointless doing this harvest because nothing can upgrade. If only had one tier yellow or one blue one, this could have been very good. I will leave you with some highlights and we'll be back later on to discuss the loot. After we've done our maps, this is all the loot that we have gathered. I've taken the liberty to remove some of the stuff that isn't really worth much, and we are left with this. However, I do need to say that we have encountered rituals quite sometimes, and I actually did them because we blocked all the mechanics on our atlas. This is why we have encountered ritual many times, because it was not blocked. Let's upload all of that to Whealty Exile and see how much we made. And as you can see, we are looking at a 62 divine stash tab. Now it's pretty obvious that more than half of the returns come from only the juice itself. However, we did get lucky with the divine drops. 4 of the raw divines that we dropped were from a shit altar that occurred almost at the end of the map. The most currency generating items are also the cheater divination card that we dropped from a div card altar. We dropped 4 Valdo puzzle boxes, 1 ambush scarabs of containment. We have dropped 109 dune maps. However, there is one thing we need to know, that Whealty Exile does not take into consideration if the maps are influenced by memory. So this 62 divines will be even more once we calculate this thing right here. And we have dropped a total of 15 memory influenced maps, and these maps are worth. Let's go to trade. We will not see those ones because those ones are baiters, of course. As you can see, this averages from 20 to 30 chaos. Let's say 20. So if we calculate 15 times 20, we are looking at 300 chaos. Let's divide that by 160. 1.8 divines. So we can go ahead and add the 1.8 divines to the 62, giving us a total amount of 63.8. Let's just say 64. Let's continue with the things that are generating the most currency. We dropped a ton of Grand Exarch Ichors worth 1.4 divines, 6 abomination maps. Now we got lucky from we dropped 2 audiences of the king from the ritual, 1 catalyzing Scarab, a dragon's heart, and of course we made 3 screaming invitations. That's because we did so many maps. And in the end we're looking at 43 divines worth of currency. This almost all of it come from the juice, 3.2 divines in fragments. We got many wild rose cards, so I turned them in for a grace. We got 8.1 divines worth of scarabs. This 2.5 divines worth of maps isn't accurate. I already made the calculation. Some chaos worth of blueprints, some chaos worth of invitations, some essences, some uniques. But in the end we're looking at a 64 divine stash tab, of course counting the correct calculation for the memory influenced maps. So if we subtract the initial investment 11.8, this gives us a final number of 52.2 divines of pure profit. Now each map took on average about 4 minutes and a half to run. We ran 100 maps. This gives us a total of 7 hours and a half worth of farming time. If we divide the 52 by 7.5, this will give us about 7 divines per hour. Now of course if we use the Horned Scarab of Awakening, the amount of juice that we have generated would have been much bigger. However, if we were looking to invest in the Horned Scarab of Awakening, this would have made the initial investment way more expensive. The average player could not invest so much in a currency farming strat. However, this will be much more rewarding. We will do that in a later video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do not forget to check out the previous farming videos. The last one I farmed 100 Shaper Guardian maps. The return on the investment of that was very big. I will be working on more farming strategies for later on. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. I answer everything. And as always, like if you like, subscribe if you want, and thank you for watching.